Hello, friends, and welcome back to Weird Wednesdays. Tattooed Biker here with you, and tonight I'll be reading emails from viewers about encounters they've had with bizarre beings and unidentified cryptids. There are strange and terrifying things out there, and people encounter them all the time. Here are their true stories. So grab your gear, because we're getting off the beaten path tonight. Let's ride. Number 1. Hey Biker, I don't really know how to start this. I was watching a YouTube video of yours and it made me think I should probably share my experience. This happened my sophomore year or junior year of high school, so almost 3 years ago now. I live in rural western North Carolina and I'm the first stop for the bus route. But my bus stop is probably a quarter-mile away from my house, as all the neighborhood is on a hill with a big private drive that leads up to the houses. And every morning, I'd say around 6:50, I would walk out of my driveway and down to the bus stop and wait. It's pitch black down there, so I would use my phone flashlight to guide me. And every day I would stand and wait most of the time, just listening to music or looking at my phone. And it always felt eerie being in the dark alone like that, but I've just always felt uncomfortable in the dark. But one morning, I was walking down the hill as I did. It's a steep, long hill, by the way. And I only made it about a quarter of the way down when I heard a scraping noise, almost. It's hard to describe. I guess the best way to explain it is nails on sheet metal. Originally, I didn't think much of it, and just slowed down a little. And then it happened again. All of this happens within 30 seconds, mind you. And I just stopped in my tracks, and my heart started pounding from the noise making me nervous. And I began to hear loud rustling at the tree line on my left side before something pale, white, human-shaped, and around the size of a deer ran out of the wood line into the small yard next to me. I turned and ran so fast I didn't get to look long as it triggered my fight-or-flight response. I ran all the way back up the hill and jumped over every step on my porch and straight into my house, truly fearing for my life and hyperventilating. Mind you, I'm a large guy, about 5'11" and 250 pounds, and I don't get spooked easily, but I remember running and letting out a reflexive wail of fear. It's really all I could do as I ran. And to this day, I never walk in my neighborhood in the dark. I was scared so bad, I found another way to get to school besides the bus, and shortly after this, I got my license. I just want to hear what y'all think. I've only ever told my mom and my friends, and I'm more than willing to send pictures of where it happened as I still live here. Thanks for letting me share. Signed, Travis. Number 2. Dear Tattooed, I'm a fairly young person, but in my life I've had quite a few experiences of my own, and I also have some stories of my family's experiences. I can share them all with time, but today I'll be sharing my experience with something I can only describe as troll-like. It was around 2015 when this happened. It was 10 p.m., and I was walking home from my grandparents' house back to my house. My house was directly in front of my grandparents' house at the time, maybe not even 20 feet apart. My grandma was on the porch, saying goodbye after we had talked for a bit. I start walking down the steps and I hear a very strange sound. I've never found proper words to describe the sound. The closest I can get is horse hooves on a window. It sent shivers down my spine, and my grandma played it off, so I continued walking. At this point, she had gone in the house. I was halfway home when I looked down the yard, and at the end of my grandparents' house stood a tall, hairy humanoid creature. It was about 10 feet tall, huge, and covered in reddish-brown hair. It resembled a human in shape and features, but it just wasn't human. It started walking towards me. I was so scared I couldn't move. It only walked about 6 feet before stopping. I just stared at it, and it stared at me. It wasn't moving, so I ran towards my house suddenly, as fast as I could. When I got on my porch, I looked back, and it had started walking back to the end of my grandparents' house again. A few nights later, my mom was watching me walk to my grandparents' house. I didn't see anything and got there safely. My mom told me that she saw the same thing at the end of my grandparents' house. She said it was standing outside of my uncle's window. It looked at her and she looked at it, but it didn't move from its spot. She described it the same way I did. We researched things together, but we never found anything like it. After that, maybe 2 or 3 days go by, and my dad was outside at around 9 p.m. He was making sure he had locked the car, and when he was out there, he saw it, standing under a motion light we had in the yard between our houses. He also described it in the same way. He said it didn't acknowledge him, but he quickly went back inside. The day after that, my uncle left. For the rest of our years living there, we didn't see it again. My uncle's room was at the end of my grandparents' house. He's not a good person, and there's a few other stories about things like this when he was around, plus his own story. My parents and I are sure that it was there because of him, but it's still so creepy just to think about. I've never found any creature resembling this since. I'm sorry if my description of it is bad. I'm not sure how to describe it exactly. I just stumbled across this channel and decided to send you my story. If anyone has any similar stories, I'd love to hear them. And if you have any ideas, I'd love to know. I've always been a believer, and my family has too. I have lots of stories to tell, and if you'd like more, I'd be glad to share them. The world is a mysterious place, and I wanted to share this with you. Thank you for reading. Signed, Renee. Number 3. Hey TB. Okay, I totally understand if no one believes this because we're still unsure of what really happened, but we sat down and came to a consensus on the events, and we all agreed that we witnessed the same thing. Me and 3 buddies were hiking in the San Bernardino National Forest over a Thursday and Friday. We were hiking various trails, mostly the known ones, and mostly during the day. I've sent a few screen grabs of our GPS showing where we were. Friday, we were making our way to Clark's Summit. As we were walking, one by one we noticed that we were veering off the trail. I asked my friend in front of me why he was going off the trail, and he asked our friend who was in front of him the same thing. The friend in front told us, "I can hear a woman talking. You guys can't hear that?" We didn't hear anything. We tried to convince her to leave it be because it was already kind of dark and we were close to where we wanted to set up camp on the trail. Our friend in front is female and insisted that she heard what sounded like a female calling for help, and that she sounded really close. So I think she felt inclined to investigate a possible female in distress, while we were totally okay with going about our business. Okay, I get a bit spooked now because she's absolutely serious, and we absolutely couldn't hear whatever she was hearing. And here's where it got really weird. We only ventured off the trail about 300 to 400 meters, yet at one point, we were completely lost. We don't have any fancy gear because we never really needed it, but we've been on this trail enough to know that we hadn't gone far. Yet we couldn't find the trail in any direction after walking for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then I started to feel weird, kind of dizzy and lightheaded. And when I mentioned this, the other 2 said they felt it as well. It was like something had changed the environment around us, or moved us somehow to another location. I had no idea which way to go, and now it was fully dark. My female friend said that the woman's voice had said, "I'm over here, and please help me." She said it sounded like she was hurt and crying. So here we are, somehow lost after only walking for about 20 minutes off a large trail because my friend is hearing voices. We decided to stop walking in any direction, because the last thing you want to do at night is get even more lost. We had 2 tents and sleeping bags in our packs, so we found a clearing and set up. We figured once the sun was out, we'd easily find our way back to the trail. Before we could even lay down to rest, I noticed a tree near us was moving, as if something was climbing it. It was really dark and I wear glasses, so I really struggled to see. I called over my 2 friends. I thought it was an animal at first, but it wasn't an animal. It wasn't anything. I could just see the outline of what roughly looked like a human, but it was transparent, like completely see-through. The best way I can describe it is the way heat waves look on the pavement in the summer. You know, that wavy, liquid effect. They saw it too. My buddy said, "What are we looking at?" when he finally spotted it. They all said the same thing. It was transparent, but still visible due to the foliage around it being displaced and moving as it moved. We all just stood stone still, whispering theories back and forth as to what we thought we were seeing. I thought maybe it was some kind of optical illusion, but they both immediately jumped to aliens. The thing just sat there, perched on a large branch about 50 feet up. It was like it was watching us watch it. The other oddity is that after staring at this thing for about 10 minutes, we noticed all the normal forest sounds we'd heard prior had completely stopped. I mean, the only noise was us talking and the leaves under our feet. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I had goosebumps all over when I realized it, like something was truly wrong. After about 10 minutes of us standing there, whatever this thing was started to climb up the tree even higher, until we could no longer see it at all. We approached the base of the tree slowly, and walked around in a circle with our necks craned up trying to spot it. It was too dark and the trees were too close for us to see the top. We didn't hear it jump to another tree, so we assumed it was still up there. We were all too spooked, obviously, to camp right underneath whatever this thing was, so we gathered up our stuff and started walking towards the moon. I shit you not, after about 5 minutes of walking, we were suddenly back on the trail. For a moment, we all just stood there, confused, looking around trying to confirm what we were all seeing. My buddy likes to explain it away, saying maybe we had all just gotten suddenly dehydrated and all imagined the same thing. I highly doubt that, but whatever happened, it seemed kind of, well, I guess predatory. Like it seemed something was luring us or trying to confuse us. My friend still thinks that we were messing with her about not hearing the woman that she claimed to hear. Was it that thing we saw, imitating the woman? How did we get so lost, so close to the trail? This was easily the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced in the wilderness. We still don't have any good theories as to what we saw. It may not have been an alien, but whatever it was humanoid, and was about 90% transparent. Somehow, and able to climb a really large tree, very easily, without making hardly any noise. I would love to hear any theories about what this might have been. Has anyone else out there ever seen anything like this out in the woods? Thanks for reading. Signed, Garrett. Number 4. Hey TB, when I was in my early teen years, me and my family moved into a cabin owned by my father's boss for a whole year. He worked at a logging mill in northern Minnesota, about 100 miles from Canada. The cabin was only a few miles away from the mill. Other than a gasoline generator located in a small shack outside, we had no electricity, no running water, or any modern amenities. I was no stranger to the forest or nocturnal forest adventures at this point, so living here wasn't so bad from the outside looking in, but the first sense of this place you get is a strong sense of being watched and the absolute dead silence. These two factors alone would remain a 24/7 norm at this place, in the sense that this atmosphere never really changed, unless it was storming, to the point where me and my siblings were at school and my dad at work. My mom would hide away during broad daylight because of the sense, and describing hearing what sounded like someone jumping and crawling on the sheet metal roof. To the main course of the story, most of my experience there came at night, where more often than not I would always be the last one asleep. When this would happen, there would be shadowy figures at the windows outside the living room, or even outside my bedroom window. I remember so many nights where I would just be paralyzed with fear, true fear, feeling this figure's gaze on me, with an almost telepathic sense that this thing was communicating with me with a language of emotions. There were many opportunities for me to be taken alone, but I can't remember a ton of what would happen on my 1.5-mile walks from where the bus would drop me off. For the longest time, my father, he was a seasoned hunter and former linebacker in high school, never believed me as a kid, until one night he asked me to dump the sink bucket outside. I refused because it was dark, and that those things were out there. He scoffed it off, having a few drinks in him, led me out the front door, where I held the bucket and got 2 feet out before something heavy booked it through the forest. It sounded like a bulldozer, from right outside the door, sending my father back inside and pushing me. Another instance we had was with my younger brother. While exploring a game trail, we were approaching a cutout in the forest for power lines, when something suddenly screamed at us, and my dad got us out of there. A scream that mimicked a woman screaming bloody murder, but with the ferocity or power of an elephant. It went right through you, like the strongest dose of infrasound possible. Another strange event to my father. Oh, and every morning, my mom would start the generator so we could get ready for school, and before she would, something would smack the generator shack and then take off into the forest, scaring the hell out of my mom. First time sharing this anywhere. Have you guys ever experienced anything like this? Signed, Reed. And there it is. True stories from viewers who encountered strange beings and unidentified cryptids. Any idea on what these could have been? I suspect these submitters would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Just please, keep it respectful. I have a feeling that these brave souls were shaken by their experiences already. And if you have an encounter or experience that defies explanation that you want to share, just send it to the email in the description, and your story just might make it into a future video. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker.